Hello, and welcome back to the Tyra Hill Show. I am talking part two of Woman to Woman with my mother. We had such a phenomenal conversation on part one, just trying to understand, that generations are different. Generations were reared differently. So some of the things that we expect from our parents may not have been given to them by their parents. It's not because their parents didn't want to give it to them. It's because their parents didn't know how to give it to them. So let me ask you the question. If their parents didn't give it to them, how could they give it to you? Right? And so I'm having this dope conversation with my beautiful mother. Hi, Mommy, and welcome back for part two of Woman to Woman. Are you enjoying the conversation, Mommy?
I am having such a good time having these conversations
Well,
because it allows me to think about my rear and how I was raised.
hmm Yeah, and that's what conversations do. It gives. I wanted to create a safe place for you and I to have this conversation because I just feel like, and I've said it in part one, and I'm going to say it again. The more I got to know you and how you were reared, the more I understood you, and the easier it was for me to forgive you and to extend you grace. And so I just really want to commend you for being brave enough um, to come on here because you didn't know what I was going to say. And I want to commend you for being vulnerable because I know that it's something that your generation really don't show too much. You guys don't show vulnerability a lot.
That's true. That is so true. It's easier to keep it held in within than to let it out.
Right. And so I think, and then not only that, I think that you guys were taught that if you show any type of vulnerability, that displays weakness.
Well, being raised from with a woman um, as strong as my mother allowed me to become a strong woman. So I mirrored her because there was no conversations about feelings, emotions, or anything.
He was also a non foolishness, a zero tolerance person who was very quick tempered and who talked a lot with her pistol
Or her knife,
or her knife because she always kept the blade in her brassiere.
always.
And so there was a bond that her and I shared, um, and a precious bond that I hold near and dear to my heart. So a lot of times when I see you maneuvering like Big Mama, I have to acclaim how I move to you and Big Mama. The cooking. I love to cook, Mommy, and you know that. But that's
Right.
something that you shared with your mom, I shared with her, and then I got a chance to share with you.
Absolutely. She
Cook,
loved to cook.
yeah, cooking together. I remember you being a single mom, and Nina and I would be at home, and I would cook me and Nina dinner. Were you shocked that I started like frying chicken and stuff at a young age?
Absolutely not, because I was a working mom.
Yeah.
You all were in school. And so when you all got home from school, you all had to eat. So when you got there, you cooked, Nina cooked, y'all did things together. And so you cooking now the way you cook does not surprise me.
So that's you all have truly molded me into the woman that I've evolved into, and I wouldn't be half of the woman that I am without you queens in my life. And so I'm so grateful for you. Um, the first part one of this show, this conversation, we kept it light and we kept it cute. Part two, I want to kind of get into depth about some things like disciplining. How were you all disciplined when you were younger?
Well, mama really wasn't a mom that whooped us unless she had to. So I was that kid that got very few whoopings, if any. I think my mom probably whooped me that I can remember probably once or twice.
Really?
Um, yeah, yeah. I don't remember my mom ever really whooping us like that.
So why you whip your kids like that?
Um, because I think the part of it is whooping you all. Um, it was like you said, a different generation, firm. See, I feared my mother.
You didn't think we feared you?
No.
Oh, we feared you. But it's crazy to me, or even just find out that you all really didn't get whoopings, because I attested that the reason why you whooped us the way that you whooped us was probably because Big Mama whooped you that way. Like, one of the things that I said that I wouldn't do when I became an adult was whip my children with extension cords. And that's how you whooped us. We got whooped with extension cords. And I think about that. And to me, it resembles slavery and the whip. Did you ever think about that?
I didn't think about that, but I remember when I did get the few whippings that I did get, that's what we got whooped with.
It was more of a lashing than a discipline. You get what I'm saying?
Right, right. And I understand that now, um, why I shouldn't have. But back then, that's what when I did, like I said, when I did get a whooping, that's what my mom used.
And
My mom didn't use belts. Now she did use a switch, but she didn't use belts. We got whoopings with the extension cord, but other than that,
and that's
um,
that's a generational curse, that and generational trauma that I wasn't willing to bring into my household. And I felt like it was a taught behavior, right? Grandma's mom, probably Big Mama's mom, did it to her. She did it to you. You did it to me. And it stopped with my son. And I think it's more so because our generation is considered more of the woke generation. And we have more resources to really understand um, the root of things, and we all know that slaves were, when they misbehaved or they didn't do what they were told, that they got lashings. And that's what the extension cord represents to me. And I know you know better now. And so, of course, your grandchildren would never have to feel that coming from you or from their parents. But it's just the mindset. And I'm bringing up these things because a lot of what we experience is learned behavior. Now, I'm sure in your mind, when you were chastising your girls, there was no cruel intention or thought behind it. That what you were doing would affect us years to come.
absolutely, absolutely.
But now that we're older and wiser, we can have these conversations, because one of the reasons why I held so much resentment against you was because of the way that you chastised your children. Like, I felt that being disciplined or chastised with an extension cord was brutal. Like, there's no way. And because I was so young, and I didn't know what I know now. My young mind was telling myself there's no way that she can love you and she's doing this to you. And so I think a lot of times that perception comes in, especially when you're young, because you haven't lived life, you haven't had children, you don't know what it's like to parent. All you know is that your parents are supposed to nurture you and to love you. And yeah, they're supposed to discipline you, but to that extent. So I literally had to work through that as well. But easily forgave you once I learned that it was a learned behavior. And that you did what you were taught to do. Did when it came to not just disciplining us or having real conversations with us, have you ever sat down and said something to your mom that you may not have agreed with that she did?
Well, I actually never, even when my mom did or said something that I didn't like, I never had those conversations ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, because I felt that was the way that she felt, and I honored that, but never went into why or how I felt about the situation.
Right, right. And let's stay right there because that's a good point, Mom. You honored what she said. And I think our generation is different. We honor our parents, but I think that this generation has come to a place to where we're not just accepting bad behavior or trauma or abuse or whatever shape it may come from form in the name of love. Myself telling people no one is telling you to stay in any type of abusive relationship because abuse comes in different forms as well. Because parenting is not easy. And what I've come to learn is as parents, we don't always make the right decisions.
Absolutely.
We don't
Absolutely.
always say the right things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so
But I also want,
I found myself sitting in your seat a lot.
I wanted to say just on that part too, Tyra, is that when I was coming up, you didn't hear about mental health or
Mm-hmm.
um, therapy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, getting him or her some help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of times what happened or happens is that me and for myself, I suppressed
Mm-hmm.
my feelings or my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
because it's better not said than to get in more trouble or to
Mm-hmm.
get whooped again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so you just went along with the flow.
And boom, there it is. This generation, my generation, what we're saying to our parents is we're not just going along to get along anymore. We want healing. We want resolution. We want resolve, right? I know that even in the beginning of my healing journey, I know I got on your nerves with therapy because it felt like an attack when I would call you and I would have conversations with you about things. And
Yes.
I know it was hard for you to have me call you and have these hard conversations. And I would often tell you, I'm not attacking you, I'm just trying to heal.
Yep, that's what you used to say.
Because
That's exact.
without understanding, and really not just heal me, heal us. But I knew in
Right.
order for me to heal, I had to have conversations with you because I still wanted you in my life. If I didn't want you in my life, I was still able to heal and I just didn't need to have those conversations. But because it was me fighting for us.
And that's good. That was good, T. That's good. That's a good statement. And then I had to be willing to hear your heart
Yeah.
and listen at your part, but I also had to be willing and able to hear your heart desires, your needs, your wants. I need to know why this, why that. And
Mhm.
so even though it was hard for me to answer those things, um, I know we had to get to a place where we could love each other
Right.
totally. Not part,
Right.
but totally.
Right. You know, because I feel like a lot of what I went through with being broken and having being in abusive relationships with men, it stemmed from my childhood. You know, my relationship with my father, my relationship with you, um, being a daughter who whose father was married at the time of me being conceived. For years I was so angry with you because I felt like you put me in that situation. So it was resentment, it was anger, it was wrath, it was bitterness and brokenness. But it wasn't until one day I was like, okay, you know what? We're about to have this conversation. How did you and my dad happen? And you told me your story. And I'll never forget being speechless, but also feeling like a part of me was healing because I needed to have this conversation. Like you being the age you were when you met my dad, and then me getting pregnant at 16. But how old were you when you met my father?
16. Yeah, 16.
Being your scarlet letter, I felt like I just didn't belong here. Like I didn't, nobody wanted me to exist. And so that was another level of self hate that I put on myself. And so learning to love me was one of the best gifts I could have ever given myself. That's why healing was so detrimental. It was my lifeline. And me healing was not me trying to shame anyone. It wasn't me trying to say, okay, you know, this is why I'm this way because you did this. It was none of that. It was literally my lifeline because it would be days that I did not want to exist because so many people hated me, or so many people didn't want me here, or because so many people wished me away, and because people were literally trying to take my birthright. And so it was essential that I went to therapy, or you might not be talking to your daughter because I wouldn't be here. And so it was me saying, Mom, I wish I would have, now that I'm stronger emotionally and mentally, I probably would have just came out and said, Mom, I need for us to heal because you're my lifeline. Like you're the lifeline. But now, back then, I didn't have that mindset. I just felt like if I didn't start healing, that that would be my demise.
Hmm.
Did you even know I felt that way?
I did not know you felt that way. Um, but one thing I can say that you have grown um, into a marvelous, beautiful, level-headed young lady slash daughter. And kudos to Tracy, because the thing of it is, you set the example of what it was about you and what did you need to get yourself better into a better place. and the decision that you made to meet the Tracy and to
Mm-hmm.
get the help that you needed so you can begin to love you, so you can start the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing that I did not think about, and I've said this before, is I didn't think about me being pregnant at 19 and the outcome of what was going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought about I was pregnant. I love my baby. I'm going to have my baby. And I'm going to be the best mom that I can be.
Mm-hmm. And you were.
You
You,
know,
you really were the best mom that you could be with what you were taught.
yes.
I've watched you evolve into an even better mom. You listen now. When I tell people that we had a strained relationship and that it got very ugly and it was ugly for years, you know what they say, Mom?
What?
I don't believe that. And I'm like,
Wow.
it's true because they see the end result. You get what I'm saying? They see us now, you know. And so I just kind of want to give hope to other daughters and mothers who may be experiencing what we've experienced.
Absolutely.
I know it was heartbreaking for you when you found out that I was pregnant. And I know it was difficult for you because you were a single mom. Let's go
Correct.
back to that day that I was on the floor eating McDonald's and you came in my room and said, "You're pregnant, aren't you?"
Well, I always say that the spirit is faithful. And so it, when you ask, could you have McDonald's that day? And that's something that was out the ordinary for you. And so when you asked, and I said, sure. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a Big Mac.
It was. And I never ate Big Macs. I was a quarter pounder chick.
Right. And and so I was like, Tyra, you pregnant, ain't you?
And I just busted out crying. Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday.
And so
Yeah.
did you feel like you had failed me as a mom?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I felt like, what did I do wrong? If I could have, would have, should have. All those questions, all those beating my head up against the wall, and maybe I shouldn't have worked. And when did it happen? Because I was a mother that had one activity, which was bowling. And I really didn't go to clubs. And I went to work, home, church, home. Like,
And
when did this
softball.
happen?
And softball.
Yeah, and softball. Yeah. And you all was at the softball field with me at practice and everything. So, you ask all these questions. How?
You didn't fail me as a mom. You failed, and it's not even failed. You neglected to teach me proper sex talk. Like it was just like your mom. She didn't have that conversation with you. You didn't have it with us.
Right.
And I'm 46 years old, and still to this day, if I say something to you sexually, you shy away from it. Cause and I'd be like, "Mom, we're grown women," and I guess it's just the way that you were taught. Your mom didn't discuss sex with you. You didn't discuss sex with us. And I laugh. Y'all told us if we kiss boys, we caught cooties.
Right.
Like, that was supposed to detour us from kissing boys? And so I laugh about that stuff. So even now, as a nana whose eldest grandson is experiencing um young manhood, I will say, I'm having those conversations. And one of the things that I asked their parents, all of my grandchildren's parents, was not to use words like the birds and the bees. We ain't got time for that conversation no more. We got to start having real conversations with our children. Ain't no birds and no bees. We talking about sex. We gonna say the word sex. Can you say the word sex, mommy?
Sex.
Because I know it's hard for you to say it. And then the other thing that I asked them to not do was to say things like your wee wee. No, we're going to call it a penis. We're going to say the word vagina. Like, we're going to give the proper names to the proper body parts. So when we teach our children or our grandchildren what violation looks like, we're not saying, now, somebody touch your wee wee. No, did somebody touch your penis? Let's talk about the phrase that we heard so much growing up. What goes on in this house stays in this house. What goes on in this house stays in this house has covered up a lot of generational trauma, sexual trauma within our families. Hearing one of my girlfriends that I went to school with in elementary who was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I remember us talking about it, and I'm like, girl, you gotta tell. And she was like, no, because my mom said what goes on in this house stays in this house. And I think that people literally took that phrase and ran with it and abused it. And that's what kept a lot of the family secrets that has destroyed families for generations to come. So when I got older, and I started hearing people saying, well, what goes on in your house stays in this house. It still didn't set right with me. But when I started therapy, it started aggravating me. Because one of the things that I found to be true was what goes on in this house stays in this house. And it's not the building, it's our bodies. We were holding on to trauma, sexual trauma, generational trauma, and holding on to it and not talking about it because we were taught not to discuss things. So can you see why this generation it has shifted from that phrase?
Well, yeah, I can understand what you're saying because your house is within yourself, you. But you remember that I wasn't looking at it as that part of the
Right.
sexual part.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about the conversations, or whatever that was going on within the four walls. And it's still going on in some of those generational houses and family homes and everything.
I don't like it because, see, here's the thing. We have children that are in abusive homes that are afraid to say anything because they were taught what goes on in this house stays in this house. And you work with children every day that are abused and, different aspects of life. And so I just think that one phrase has really handicapped the Black community
I agree.
and cursed us, because that's why it's so much unhealed trauma, because what goes on in this house stays in this house. Have you ever been in an abusive relationship?
Absolutely. Two.
Really?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Two of
What,
them.
was it hard for you to get out of those relationships?
Yes. Well, one of the things is that you find yourself, well, maybe if I wouldn't have said this or if I wouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you blame yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, when things don't change and in your heart, when you come to your senses,
Mm-hmm.
and you come to your senses and say, you know what? I didn't do anything to deserve this.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm not. So when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired,
I
then you
never
move on.
and shout out to you, mommy. I never couldn't no man jump on you in front of me.
Oh, it
And
didn't
so
happen in front of my girl.
and
Right.
that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like then don't even tell me the names after the show because I'll still run up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I just feel like me getting into the abusive relationship with my first marriage had to be hard for you.
Oh yeah, it was. Because I know that what I had went through in it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so you find yourself, you don't want your kids, especially your girls, to go through anything like that you already have been through.
And so, do you think that if you were open and transparent and talked about that with your girls, it would have stopped us from experiencing those things?
Oh yeah, yeah, I really do. One thing as a parent, you wish you would have done some things differently, and part of that is communication,
Mm-hmm.
being open, being honest. Um, but then on the other side of it too, I wanted to protect y'all.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what we do as parents. We try to shield our children. We try to protect our children. And then we don't want our children to know our business. That's another thing. Because
Yeah.
what I've come to find out is eventually your business will be your children's business because they're going to
Mm-hmm.
experience it too.
Right. Exactly.
Of course, you shield your children from things, right? But
Right.
when they're old enough and they're mature enough, you start having real conversations with them. Like,
Absolutely.
I wish that I would have got to know you as a woman as I was becoming a woman and not in my 40s.
Right.
Does that
Right.
make sense?
That makes sense. Yep, that makes sense.
I think it would have saved you a lot of heartache and headache, and I wouldn't have been as rebellious. But I just felt like you couldn't relate to anything that I was going through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever feel like you could
Absolutely.
relate? Did you ever feel like you could relate to your mom?
Well, not I never, like I said, a lot of it I never thought about that part because
Mm-hmm.
my thing was whatever my mom needed, she she got. Even as a kid, whatever she wanted done, I did. As I got to be an adult, anything that she wanted or needed. Um, but again, even as an adult, I never questioned her. I never gave her my opinion. We talk about a lot of things, but my mother would be in a rocking chair watching westerns and just was quiet and meditating and praying.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. Big Mama wasn't a church goer, but she made sure I went to Sunday school and to choir rehearsal and to church on Sundays and Bible study. Did y'all go to church when you were younger?
I did. My other siblings didn't. I was in church all day and I enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably was in probably fifth grade. And so I went faithfully every Sunday.
It
And
makes
sometimes
it actually makes sense because every Saturday you're either feeding the homeless or serving your church.
right,
Like it just
right.
makes sense, and it makes sense on how you reared us up in church. That's why I have that balance. Let me give you your flowers right now. A lot of people accredit me to being balanced. I'm very spiritual, but I'm also a human being who likes to have cocktails, who likes to dance, who loves all genres of music, right? And I credit that to you because it would be times where you made sure we went to church, Bible study, Sunday school, uh, whatever else we needed to do. Then it would be times where you would be in the house cleaning to the blues.
Right.
And so I feel like you taught me balance, and that it was okay to have a life outside of church. I want to talk to you about my 4C Kiki curly hair because I have really, really thick hair and an afro that I love. Why you give me that Jerry curl?
Jerry Curls was in at that time, and I didn't have to worry about doing your hair. You
Ma!
know, your hair was so thick.
But do you realize that a Jerry curl is Caucasian people relaxers? And then you took me from the Jerry curl and then you gave me the relaxer. My question to you and to other mothers, African American mothers, why weren't we taught to appreciate and to love our natural natural state of hair?
I never really thought about that, Tyra. You know,
And
I think that a part of it is it was something that I thought that was convenient and cute, and I think that's why I did it.
now let me tell you what I love most about when I would get my hair done. I love the fact when you would get our hair braided and beaded because that was more for the culture, right? That like I love getting my hair braided. I love getting my hair beaded. I even love going to the salon. But I guess because I'm older now and I never really got to fully celebrate and embrace my kinky hair, my 4C kinky curly hair, that's why I'm so much in love with my natural hair now. Even you have a newfound love for your natural hair.
Yes, I do.
And so I said that because I think it's important as mothers, especially mothers of daughters, brown and brown girls. It's important that we teach them to love their natural state of hair.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would ever go back into a relaxer,
Right.
because I've been without a relaxer probably for about 7 years now,
Mm-hmm.
if not longer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I agree with that. You know, be careful. And your 4C hair is just as beautiful as it was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but not, it was hard to manage for me.
What would you say to that mother who has an estranged relationship with her daughter?
What I would say to a mother that has a estranged relationship with her daughter is be willing to sit down and listen. Don't take it personal. You have to listen to your daughter, um, and listen to what and how they're feeling, why they feel that way, what caused them to feel that way. Um, I can't stress it enough about not taking it personal because that's their feelings. And then you have a chance to share yours with her.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn to respect and to listen, at least you all can understand why you all are there where you are as far as having that strain on your relationship. Um, Sometimes the truth hurts. I'm a witness to that. But if it's willing and it's going to cause me and my child to love each other more and real and openly, it's worth it. it is so worth it. Instead of the relationship becoming combative and hard to have those hard conversations, be willing to be okay with having them and being open and honest. Honesty is the opportunity of freedom.
Yeah. I just love her.
Thank you. I
What I
love you
would
too.
say, that was good, Mom. What I would say to the daughter from sitting in a daughter's chair, reconciliation is possible. Um, it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be painful. You're gonna have to relive some trauma. But I guarantee you, when you learn how to not just talk through it and breathe through it and heal through it, life will be so much better. Life would be so much better. Don't be afraid
Yeah.
to have the hard conversations. Luckily, my mother was willing to have those conversations with me. But what she does not know, that if she wasn't, I was going to have to pull her in on one of my therapy sessions. If you find that the conversation is hard to have the conversation with a therapist or a mediator. Um, and when you talk, don't talk to be right. Talk to tell your truth. And when you listen, don't just listen, but hear. Hear what the heart is saying. I want every mother and daughter to attempt to heal the brokenness and to figure out what the breakdown is so that you too
Absolutely.
can be happy, because there is no way that you can look in the mirror and say that you truly love yourself and you hate who brought you into this world. Because looking in the mirror and seeing yourself is also seeing your mother or seeing your father. So understand that we were all reared differently. Some of us just didn't get what we needed. But it does not mean that your mom doesn't love you. All it means is nobody gave it to her so that she can give it to you. And that you might be the person to teach your mother what healing looks like, what it sounds like, and what it feels like. So don't feel
Yeah.
defeated, beloved. Mommy, thank you for this conversation. Is there anything else that you want to say?
Thank you for having me, Tyra. It was such an honor and a privilege to be on the Tyra Hill Show, first of all. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud of what God has in store for you in 2023. Look out, y'all. Here she comes. I
Oh,
love you, baby.
I love you too. Oh, I love you more. I love you more. I love you more. Now let's give him a shimmy, mommy. I wanna talk about it on the Tyra Hill Show.